Okay, so this time we're going to do some solving systems by elimination, and we got to multiply both equations to get rid of one of our variables. As you can see, this time we don't have coefficients that are the same to be able to eliminate pretty much right away, or just multiply by a -1 to be able to eliminate. So we have to get the same coefficient for the variable we want to eliminate. In this first example, I'm going to get rid of y. And right now you can see, even though they're not exactly the same coefficient, I can make them the same coefficient by multiplying both equations by something. Also, they're already opposite signs, so whenever I multiply these two equations, I don't need to multiply anything by negatives to make them opposite to be able to get rid of them. So right now, what's going to happen is I'm going to multiply to get rid of the y's. I'm going to multiply the top equation by the coefficient in front of the bottom, so I'm going to multiply the top one by 3 and the bottom one by 9. Now they're both already going to stay positive because these are already opposite signs. So you'll see whenever I do this, I'm going to multiply the bottom one by the top number and the top one by the bottom number. And we're going to distribute and see what happens whenever we do this to get rid of our variable. So 3 times a -10x is a -30x. 3 times a 9y is going to give me a +27y. And 3 times 16 is going to give me a +48. Now, whenever I multiply the bottom one by 9, I get 9 times 1x is a 9x. 9 times a -3y is a -27y. And 9 times 11 is 99. So now I got what I need to be able to eliminate one of my variables right away. My y's are going to go. One's a +27, one's a -27. Exactly what I needed to be able to add those two equations together. This is why I multiplied both equations by something to make it so we could get rid of one of the variables right away. This time we picked y, and we'll see what happens. Now we know what to do with this problem. We can get rid of our y's and add these two equations. So when I do that, -30x plus a 9x is going to give me a -21x. We already said the y's are going to go. And 48 plus 99 is going to give me 7, regroup the 147. Now whenever I divide by a -21, 147 divided by a -21 is going to give me a +7. So x is, or I'm sorry, a -7. 147 divided by -21 is a -7. So this is what I'm going to plug in. I can plug into any of these four equations. But I'm going to take this last one. And this bottom one right here. It doesn't matter which of these ones I choose. I'm going to choose this bottom one because it has the smallest numbers to me. So for x, I'm going to put in -7, and I'm going to say -7 minus 3y equals 11 whenever I go to solve for y. Now that's a negative in front of that 7, so to get rid of a negative, I got to add 7 to both sides. That means it's gone. I got -3y. 11 plus 7 is going to give me an 18. 18 divided by -3 is y equals a -6. So my solution is -7, -6. And remember, I can plug in to make sure that's right into these equations. So I can say -10 times a -7 is 70. 9 times a -6 is 54. 70 minus 54 is 16. That works. -7 plus 18 is 11. That works whenever I plug those in and see if it, and put in -7 for x and -6 for y. I can say -3 times a -6 is 18. So -7 plus 18 is 11. So that works. So that is the solution to my problem, -7, -6. Now on this bottom one, you can see that I don't have anything opposite signs right now. So I have, whenever I do my multiplying this time, I'm going to have to get them opposite. How I got them opposite last time was multiplying things by a negative number. I'm going to do the same thing, but not by a -1 this time. And I'm going to get rid of my x's. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing again, where I'm going to multiply the top one by the bottom coefficient and multiply by 4. And this bottom one, I'm going to multiply by -3. Because again, like I said, I have to get things that are opposite signs. And to do that, right now they're the same. So to do that, I have to multiply by a negative. So this time, whenever I do this, I'm doing 4 times a -3x is going to give me a 12x. 4 times a 16y is going to give me a plus 64y. And 4 times 9 is going to give me 36. Now I do the bottom one by the -3 and do -3 times a -4x is going to give me a positive 12x. That should be a -12x in that top one, because I did -3 times 4. That should be a -12x. -3 times a -4 is going to give me a positive 12x. And -3 times a -8y is going to give me minus 24y. And -3 times 12 is a -36. Okay, so now I got opposite signs in front of these x's. And they're the same coefficient. So I can go ahead and add these two things together. So whenever I do that, x's are gone. That's what I wanted. I did that on purpose. I multiplied it like that on purpose to get rid of them. 64 minus 24 is a 40y. And 36 minus 36 is 0. Well, 0 divided by 40 means y is 0. Now I got to plug back in. I need to get my value for x. Got to plug back into any of these equations. Me, I like this top one the best. So I'm going to take the top one and say -3x plus 16 times 0 equals 9. -3x plus 0 equals 9 whenever I do 16 times 0. You can do this, subtract 0, you get -3x equals 9. Divide by -3, and I get x equals -3. So my solution this time is -3, 0. Okay, one more example here where we got to multiply and we have same signs already. So I got -6x minus 4y equals -2, and -5x minus 2y equals 5. This time I'm going to get rid of my y's. And look, if you notice, they're the same sign. And I got to get them to be the same coefficient. So I'm going to do my multiplying again. One by a positive, one by a negative. When I do this, this means I'm going to get opposite signs. So let's do this top one by the bottom number. And the bottom one by the top number. And I'm going to make that one the negative one to get my signs to be opposite. So I'm multiplying the top one by 2 and the bottom one by -4. I'm doing that because I want to get rid of my y's. So I'm using those coefficients in front of the y's to do that. So I'm going to say 2 times a -6x is a -12x. 2 times a -4y is a positive 8y. And 2 times a -2 is a -4. And I'm going to do -4 times a -5x is a positive 20x. -4 times a -2y. Oh, this should be a positive or a negative up here. -2 or 2 times a -4 is a -8y. -4 times a -2 is a positive 8y. And then -4 times 5 is a -20. Okay, so whenever I did my multiplication, I'll do that again since I made a mistake. 2 times a -6x is a -12x. 2 times a -4y is a -8y. And 2 times a -2 is a -4. -4 times -5 is going to give me a positive 20. -4 times -2y is going to give me a positive 8y. And -4 times 5 is going to give me a -20. So now I got things that are opposite signs and the same coefficient in front. So I can add these two things together and get rid of my y's. So -12 plus 20 is going to give me a positive 8x. And -4 plus a negative 20 gets me more negative, and I'm at negative 24. Divide by 8 to solve for x, and I get negative 24 divided by 8, x is negative 3. Now again, I'm not done. I have to plug into one of these equations to get what y is. Any of these ones. I'm going to take this bottom one right here because I like these numbers the best in that. Doesn't matter which one you can pick, but that's the one I like the best. So I'm going to do negative 5 times the negative 3, because that's what I found for x, minus 2y equals 5. Negative 5 times the negative 3 is a positive 15, so 15 minus 2y equals 5. Now, whenever I solve, I got to do minus 15 from each thing. Remember, this is a positive 15 already, so I got to do the opposite. So that's gone, and I got negative 2y. 5 minus 15 is a negative 10. Divide by a negative 2. Negative 10 divided by a negative 2 gives me y equals 5. So my solution then is negative 3, 5. And I can plug in and make sure that's true. So if I do negative 3 in for x, negative 6 times negative 3 is 18. 5 for y. Negative 4 times 5 is 20. Negative 18. Or I'm sorry, 18 minus 20, because negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. 18 minus 20 is negative 2. That works. Negative 5 times a negative 3 is a 15. Negative 2 minus 5 is 10. So negative 15, or positive 15, again, minus 10. 15 minus 10 is 5. So that works. So this is our solution to the problem. So this time, we have to do a little bit more multiplying. We have to multiply both equations by something to be able to start eliminating. Depending on what variable you want to get rid of will depend on what you're multiplying by. If you want to get rid of y's, you got to do the coefficient multiply y's where x's. Multiply the coefficient of the bottom by the top and the coefficient in the top by the bottom. If they're different signs, you're good. You don't have to multiply one by a negative. If they're the same sign for the variable you're trying to get rid of, you're going to have to multiply one of them by a negative. Then we're going to go and do our adding to eliminate one of our variables. Once we get that value for that variable, we're going to go and plug back in to get the value for the variable that we didn't find the first time to find our solution. A little bit more steps, but we've been working up to this, so the new thing with the steps should be the part that is the part that we focus on right now. This adding and knowing all that should be good by now, but the multiplying, you just have to know what you're going to multiply by to get rid of the variable.